Hey guys, this is Tantan from On the Stack Gaming. We are playing Oracle Combo. This is a historic deck. We start off with the Skyline. We're going to jump right into the game, but what this deck tries to do is use Through the Breach and the historic mill card to mill its entire deck. I'm at Underworld Breach. I can't name cards right. And mill its entire deck, and then Thassa's Oracle to win the game. What ends up happening in this game is that it starts out, I think it's an Is It control deck, but I'm right now we're just in the early stages of any kind of combo deck that you want to play. You want to play all your cantrips, start going through stuff, trying to figure out what you need, so on and so forth. Right here I'm debating about just passing and then double opting. I end up going Witching Well because it does cry 2, so I can see more cards. In this particular scenario, I could technically see up to 4 cards if I didn't like the top 3. I end up liking the top 2 here, and end up putting the Mind Stone on top, because if I do draw the Mind Stone, then I can go into draw more cards using some of the one-ofs in the deck. So in response to his opt, I opt because now the coast is clear. It looks like some sort of control deck. So right now I'm looking for different pieces. This is, I believe, like my 3rd game on the deck. It wasn't too difficult to learn how to do this, but so from there, it's his turn, and we slowly start to discover that he is a Tumor Reclamation deck. And my recommendations for playing this deck is hold on to your 0 drops and 1 drops until you're about to combo off, because you're milling yourself. I don't mind casting the Mind Stone here, and also the thing that cycles and draws me more cards, because I do need to draw more cards. But he does end up revealing that he does run counter magic here, and this is the Thassa's innovation. This is what Tumor Reclamation runs. I start recognizing that this is Tumor Reclamation in the historic build, hoping that I don't get Expansion Explosion out of the game here. From here, I end up just trying to slow ball the game because I realize he's a control deck, and I'm like, okay, so I need my red source. I'm Jeskai. Going from there. So right now right now we're just in the cantripping phase. I'm just looking for the pieces to be able to combo off, like any other combo deck. He plays his Wilderness Reclamation, and at this point, I start really losing this game. I'm playing from behind this whole time, trying to look for my 4th land drop, trying to find something that mills cards, because I need cards in my graveyard to be able to Underworld Breach. And this game was very difficult, and I'm trying to debate, okay, I do need the land, so I just go ahead and opt for it, because I do have the Blink of an Eye. I don't want him to be able to control me as hard during the next turn, because I have a feeling that I might be able to get there, because of the fact that I can start sacking things and start drawing cards, trying to value engine my opponent out of the game. We don't necessarily get there. So right now what's going through my mind is, okay, do I Blink of an Eye right now in response to that? And yeah, I end up doing that, trying to get him to waste his mana next turn. I believe this is a huge misplay, because he can just play it, untap everything, and he has everything. He ends up misplaying back. I think he should have just cast the Wilderness Reclamation and made me play around the counter magic. But as of right now, I'm getting shot for 2. Oh no, bounces Wilderness Reclamation. He ends up casting the Giant to put a clock on the board. I don't blame him. Putting the clock on the board is probably the best idea he has here. It does scare me, makes the combo deck like have a clock and giving time. So any hints on playing against combo decks, put a clock on board. Make it so they have to combo off in a certain amount of time. And if they can't get there, then you win. That's the point. But I end up cycling this card and exiling his X-Spell, just so he can't mission briefing into it. But that's the gist of what's going on here. Well, okay, so I do find my Miller. I don't need another land, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to stick that on top, and then I'm going to, I believe I just passed the turn here. So I'm thinking about cracking my Lantern to get my Miller and then go from there. You'll end up seeing that I do end up fizzling. This kind of makes it a little bit more difficult and those kind of things. Anyways, he plays his Wilderness Reclamation again, swing for 4. I crack my thing to draw a card. Hopefully I can draw into the next piece that I need. That light. Anyways, as I go into the next phase and just kind of cast that, I have 1 historic card in my hand. I realize I've misplayed so hard here that I have 4 mana to draw 2 cards by cracking one of the Wishing Wells, and I end up doing so because I'm looking for more card value engine, and putting cards in my graveyard is always a good thing in this deck. I end up drawing double land, and this feels so bad in this deck, especially on turn 5 when this is the turn you're supposed to go crazy and actually win the game. I was hoping that I was going to draw into a Underworld Breach or a Emry, which is another mill card that allows me to end up milling my deck even faster and go through it and draw more cards. Emry is basically a mana dork in this deck, which is awesome because of the way that you cycle through artifacts. But yeah, it doesn't end up going too well because he casts his 2nd Wilderness Reclamation right after he fetches, and he's setting up to kill me at this point. Yeah, I am down to 10 life, which he can easily do if he casts a 2nd Wilderness Reclamation. I don't know if he has Expansion Explosion in his hand or not, but there's the 2nd Wilderness Reclamation, and I go, okay, so he has enough mana to kill me. So it's time to play it a little bit safe. He passes the turn. I draw into a Mind Stone, and I hit my 4th Mind Stone in the deck, and that feels very, very bad. It does not feel good at all to... yeah, I need the turn off. So I end up drawing into Teferi, and I was like, okay, so maybe if I bounce one of the Wilderness Reclamations, it'll slow him down, and mill myself, and I hit one of my Underworld Breaches, which just, this game just didn't feel good for the combo deck. I'm sitting there debating what to do with the Teferi. Hopefully I can draw some more cards, so on and so forth. I can either bounce the Bone Crusher and securely lose the game, or I can just plus him and hope that I can get somewhere. There goes my 2nd Underworld Breach through the mill, which is sometimes what happens in this deck. Right now, my only plan is to find my Idyllic Tutor, my 1-of in the deck, and hopefully get out of this situation. But right now, we're not going anywhere. We're just spinning wheels and getting nowhere with it. I produced 2 mana here, and then cast my Mind Stone, just kind of setting up for the next couple turns. I still haven't done anything with my Teferi. Actually, I believe I bounced my Mox Amber to try to produce 2 mana, try to set up for the next turn. Also, the cool thing that Teferi does is it stops the Wilderness Reclamation. It also stops so many other things. So what ends up happening here is I'm like, okay, maybe I can block with my Mill Engine. I have enough cards to go off if I can find one of my other 2 copies of Underworld Breach, or Underworld Breach. And I can go off from where my hand is. Oh yeah, I do have one in hand, which makes it a little bit easier, but the thought process of the Teferi is to slow down this Wilderness Reclamation, but then he ends up just killing my Teferi, not due to combat damage, which is what I played around, but he also plays Stormwrath. This kills my Teferi and his creature, and then he goes to instep and just Expansion Explosions me, I believe. I can see it on the spot. There's nothing I can do. I'm tapped out. I have no mana. And he produced enough mana to kill me at 8 life, which kind of sucks, but it's how these games go. So I started this whole show based off of, how does this deck lose? We spin our wheels, we get nowhere, we end up just being controlled out and then one shot. The thing is that I think the worst matchup for this deck is the deck sitting across from me, which is Wilderness Reclamation, because it does have the control pieces. It has the ability to one shot us. But yeah, you get the idea. So from that concept, I know what's happening here. I'm just kind of going on to the next game now. We end up starting off with the Traveler's Amulet. This is an amazing start because, first of all, it allows me to thin my deck. Second of all, it puts a card in my graveyard. Third of all, right, and here, okay, so this is a nuts draw hand. I have the Idyllic Tutor, I have the Teferi, I have 2 Underworld Breach, and the Mill card. I'm debating whether to play the Mill card or just crack the Traveler's Amulet for the white. If I crack it for the white, then I can play the Teferi, slow the game, the game down. I know he's playing some form of green. So I'm on my expecting the worst matchup, which would be the green-blue flash deck that's flying around right now. It ends up revealing itself that is mono-green Stompy. And I go, okay, this isn't too difficult. We're going to try to race the deck. I end up drawing the Glacial Fortress, which just kind of feels bad, but it does thin my deck. I cast a fairy, slow him down, bounce the creature back to his hand, draw a card. Card advantage is the most important part about setting up for the combo here. Okay. So my draw is an artifact that triggers my mill card, which is super important. He ends up playing Steel Leaf Champion. This is a scary clock, but it's not as scary as if I were to just turn around and win. So what I end up doing is pressing my Teferi, just out of habit, make sure it's out of there, and then play my mill engine. Playing my mill engine here is probably the best option. Casting my Witching Well, scry 2, mill myself for 2, setting up for the next turn. I see the Thassa's Oracle on the top. And I'm like, okay, so if I put it in my hand, that means I don't have to worry about card count in my graveyard. This is a pretty big deal for this deck because it gets really tight towards the end if you're not careful. He ends up, I believe, killing my Teferi here, but I end up discovering that he's mono green. And being mono green makes it really easy for me to go, okay, the coast is always clear. I don't have to worry about counter magic. This is a very good matchup for me. This is very similar to the mono white Ajani Primate deck. The thing is that the Ajani Primate deck ends up like producing way too much value, and they have a 6/6 on turn 3, and that's really hard for this deck to outrace and combo off of. Here I have two of my breaches, and I'm thinking, okay, I could probably just go off here. So I'm going, okay, so how many cards do I have in my graveyard? What do I need to play? My timer starts, and I'm just like, okay, I got to make a decision. That's part of the hard part about playing this deck on Arena, is that the timer starts, and you're like, oh no, how do I combo off? How do I get there? So I end up playing Emry, milling myself for 6, Underworld Breach, because I did end up hitting the Mox Amber. This is so important, because if I didn't hit this card, I wouldn't be able to continue doing what I do. I exile one of my Teferis, one of my Mill Engines, and one of my Mind Stones. These are the higher end cards. I believe, actually, I exile 2 of my Teferis from that pile, because you only need 1. The only reason Teferi is so important is in the control matchup. Being able to turn off instant spell interaction is so important to open the close. I end up milling into the second Mox Amber, so I keep going a little bit. I'm trying to hit into the second Emry, because if I hit the second Emry, that's 6 cards for every 1 mana. So that means that I can cast my Mox Amber and my Emry and have an additional card in the graveyard to be able to go off with. It also helps that I have the Thassa's Oracle in hand. I'm also not too worried, because of the fact is that if he does end up, if I do end up fizzling, which sometimes you do, I end up casting the second Extortionist, because I realize that I'm not hitting the Emry. So that means that I need to start milling more cards. If I mill 4 cards per thing, that means I have 1 additional card in my graveyard, and I can start going crazy. But I run out of cards to exile. So I just put out a blocker, pass the turn, Underworld Breaches in the graveyard. I'm set up for the next turn. So he plays a big beat stick and then plays another creature. His beat stick is bigger, and I go, okay, that's a lot of damage, but I think I can just win because there's not enough there, and I have so much value in my hand here. After that, I end up just going crazy. I'm like, okay, here we go. Tap, play the mana just because it's good. Tap to make Mox Amber able to be cast from my graveyard for free. Float a blue. Play the other Mox Amber. Sack the other one and float another blue. Here I'm milling 4 cards just because getting value with this deck, and the more cards you can mill before you play your Underworld Breach, the better chances you have of just winning the game on the spot. Keep that Mox Amber, float another blue, and end up casting the Underworld Breach here because I don't have anything in my hand that I really want to cast. I don't need to go get an Underworld Breach. So I end up casting the Emry to start cycling Emrys here. Cycling Emrys gives me even more card advantage. That's 8 cards in my graveyard that I'm milling over. And it just kind of gets faster and faster from here. You get really used to the repetitiveness of clicking your face over and over so that you mill all your cards. And and keeping certain cards and so on and so forth. As you can see, at this point, you're pretty much established to go off. You have 2 Emrys, you have 2 Mox Ambers, and you're pretty much set to go off for the turn. My recommendation is always exile the lands because you can't cast them. You never know what you're going to need to be able to get the value that you need. So just in case I was playing against a control deck, I would try to slam the Teferi here because of the fact that protects my Thassa's Oracle. You only run one of them in the deck, so you have to be really, really careful that you don't waste all your mana in casting the Thassa's Oracle, because if you can't interact with the control deck, you just lose your Thassa's Oracle. So say you get your Thassa's Oracle gets exiled somehow, which is very possible in the historic format, but we're just trying to mill over the rest of my deck. I believe I have 14 cards left in my deck at this point, and just kind of cycling through Emry's, doing the normal gist of how this deck functions at this point. Yeah. Pay the 1 blue, exile some cards, get the rest of my cards out of my deck, and then eventually I just cast Thassa's Oracle and win the game. I'm going to take this moment to talk about some of the one-ofs in the deck and why we run certain numbers of the deck. We won the one-of Traveler's Amulet. The reason being is because it's a 2-mana fuel card that goes and puts another card in my hand. We run 4 Mind Stones because it allows you to combo into other loops. Being able to draw cards off of it is always a benefit. Anything that mills us, we run a 4 of, except for Emry. Emry, we run 3 because of the fact that she's only good once we're going off. Before we're going off, we don't care about the Emry. We really just care that we hit the cards that we need and keep going from there. We run any kind of land cycles or any kind of things like ops, anything that can give us card advantage and let us look at the top. 4 Wishing Wells because first of all, it goes with our Excavator. Second of all, it draws us cards in the control matchup. Third of all, it enters and we scry. We only run 1 Blink of the Eye. The reason is because we're going to combo into it if we need it to be able to stop them. So say they have a Teferi on board, or they have something that's like a Platinum Angel, which is legal in the format, and we can't win the game off of an alternative win con, we can Blink of the Eye to bounce the Platinum Angel to guarantee that we can still win. The reason it's only a run of is because when we're actually winning, we don't have to worry about it. Right here, I'm debating whether playing the turn 1 Wishing Well or playing it turn 3 after I play my Excavator. I ended up playing it turn 1 because being able to control my draws for the next couple turns seemed pretty good. I end up putting both of those on the bottom. First of all, I have my Excavator, I have my Mox Amber. I'm looking for a Underworld Breach or the other combo piece. I'm also looking for a red source. A big part of this is that I need one of my legendaries. My legendaries are Emry or Teferi. And so this deck's pretty tight in what it runs. These things are awesome. It mills me for 1 each turn, and it also counts towards my Excavator, which is 3 cards for 1 mana. Is pretty good. It also, if say we end up fizzling, right, which is rare once we actually start going off and we have no cards in our library, but if we end up fizzling, we can play this and then sack it to put more cards back in our deck. So say these are in here as a keepsake. If we mill over all our Underworld Breaches, this is our only way of winning after that, because we have to put our Underworld Breach back into the deck, so on and so forth, and combo off again. As you can see, this is another mono green deck. Any of the linear aggro decks are pretty decent matchups because of the fact that all we have to do is slow them down and then combo off. This is Elf Ball, which is a lot of fun. I love Elf Ball. I probably will do a video later on it, but right now we're just setting up, looking for our Through the Breach. I end up going, okay, what am I going to exile? Because of the fact my opponent doesn't have anything, so I'm like, okay, we're just going to exile a land. That is a one-of. The only reason that is in here is because of the mirror match. Because in the mirror match, you need to be able to exile your opponent's stuff to interact and actually stop them. The big thing that I think here is, okay, I have tons of lands and I have a Blink of the Eye, and that's the only thing I have. He plays his Elf Lord. I believe that's the only Lord in Historic, but yeah, from here, we're just trying to mill cards. We're trying to find our... Oh, there goes one of the cards that we need. Oh no, it's not the end of the world. We're just going to slow ball, mill over some more cards, blah, 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 and go, okay, so how do I slow down the damage that's coming at me? And how do I make sure I don't die. Because right now I'm going, okay, all I need is the Underworld Breach. If I hit the Underworld Breach, I can go infinite. Because I have the Mox Amber, he plays another banner. This is a big problem because now he has a fast enough clock, and I'm at 16. So I go, okay, we're gonna blink of the eye, waste his play. He only can swing 3 at me, and 3 damage is so much better than the bunch of damage that's coming at me. I end up drawing the Idyllic Tutor, and I'm like, okay, this is an awesome draw. It guarantees the Through the Breach, or the Underworld Breach. It also puts it in my hand, so then I can continue to mill cards. You will notice that I don't have enough mana to cast it right now, because I do not have a legendary permanent. So I'm like, okay, so we're just gonna, no attacks. We just go ahead and mill here. It doesn't really matter when we mill. Especially in mono green matchups or mono white. The problem is when we face against the white black deck or any of the control decks, Grist Control is the worst matchup possible for this deck because you guarantee that you have to have a Teferi. But that's the gist of this deck. If you guys really want to see more about this gameplay and how this stuff works, like, comment, subscribe, do the gist of it. I know I talk really fast. It's just because of the fact that I play really fast. My brain operates on that speed. And if you guys need me to slow down, go ahead and comment that. Also, like, I'm new to the YouTube platform. I'm trying my best to grow as much as possible. And at this point, you guys get to watch me combo up again. I'll probably just be quiet and comment every once in a while of why I'm playing some of the cards I'm playing. Emry mills 6 cards. This is a huge deal because having 6 more cards, so that's 2 more spells guaranteed off of the Through the Breach. Having those cards guaranteed is such a big thing. Also, before you cast Mox Ambers, make sure that you always tap the one that's on the board to produce the blue mana. I also recommend that you always use floating mana before you use tappable mana, because of the fact is that most of you cannot produce red mana through your Mox Amber because of the fact that the only colors that you can end up producing is blue and white. And blue is the big one. The reason blue is the big one is because Thassa's Orcale is double blue. But you get the idea. Recycling Emrys is just really easy because of the fact that they're cheap. It's a 1-drop blue spell that mills a bunch of cards, and that's the idea of the deck. Here, I have enough resources that if I needed to blink something to be able to be able to combo off and actually win the game, I have the blink of the eye. Also, the cool thing about Thassa's Orcale in this format is that removal doesn't stop you from winning. It's a problem in a lot of other formats because of the fact that it's so much easier to just mill over your deck. To be able to pull this combo off, you have to have at least 3 or 4 cards already on board and established to be able to start going. This is very similar to the Kenrith combo when it was in Standard. But yeah, that's the gist, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful quarantine period. I've been playing lots of Magic, enjoying myself, recording and starting this whole process. But have a good time, guys. Enjoy life. And I'll see you in the next video on the stack. Thanks for watching.